Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite area control games. Now, area control games are something I've been a big fan of for a long time, all the way back to the 80s when my favorite area control game was the classic game Risk, which unfortunately doesn't really hold up anymore till today, mainly because of player elimination while still being able to go on for ages and ages. But there's a lot of newer area control games. The theme and the mechanic is very popular, and going on through the years, there have been many great area control games, and I've picked out my favorite 10. So now, what does area control mean? Well, I think it kind of means that you're controlling an area on the board or on cards or somewhere out there on the game where if you have the most or all of the units or cards or whatever it might be in that area, you either gain a special ability, extra points, or some other way to win, some other mechanic that helps you move closer to victory. So going with that, I've picked out my 10 favorite area control games. There was one I was a little iffy on as to whether or not it was area control, but I looked on Board Game Geek and it was listed as area control, so I went with it. So here we go. Without any further ado, I'm going to count them down for you. So for my number 10, I have my favorite version of Risk because I've never seen it play with actually having players eliminated, and that is Risk Game of Thrones. Now this one doesn't hit the table as often anymore as I would like. It's dropped a little bit in my estimation, mainly because it hasn't been getting played as much, but I still do like it. It's the classic game of Risk with objective cards, and the objective cards greatly shorten the length of the game, which can be a really good thing because Risk could go on forever. And also, though, it makes it that it's short enough that I've yet to see anyone get player eliminated. I mean, I guess theoretically you could, but you'd probably have to be playing very poorly to be player eliminated in this. Now, at 2 players, you play Daenerys Targaryen versus the Giscari forces in Essos. At 3 and 4 players, you play some of the various noble houses in Westeros. And if you're playing 6 players, you can play both maps, have Essos and Westeros out, and play all the forces, which is really kind of cool. And that is Risk Game of Thrones, and this is my current favorite version of Risk. This one actually is really good. If you're looking to play a modernized version of Risk, this is the one you should go for, especially if you're a Game of Thrones fan. So, moving along, my number 9 is a small little area control game, and it is Jericho. Now, Jericho looks like a tiny little game, but it's actually one of those games where it feels like a bigger game in a small box. So this is a really strange hybrid game where it's a mix of area control as well as trick taking. And that sounds so odd. You're like, how do those mix together? But they do it very well. You are playing cards to do the trick taking aspect, but it's also showing where you're placing units on the board to help you gain control of the different regions. The different regions are worth different amounts of points in the different rounds of the game. They're all regions along a road on the way to Kyoto, and the further away you are from Kyoto, the more points it's worth at the beginning of the game, but the less points it's worth at the end of the game. And the closer you are to Kyoto, including Kyoto itself, it's the reverse. So early on, it's good to control stuff further away, but ultimately you really need to try to control Kyoto or the very close regions to Kyoto. And it's very interesting because of how there's a duality to the playing of the cards, because you're both playing the card to try to win the trick, but you're also playing it because you want to get forces on certain spaces. And sometimes you might lose a trick on purpose because you really want to get forces on a certain space. And that is Jericho. It's a really interesting game, and I highly recommend it. Now, for my number 8, we have a game that I believe this is the first time it has made it to any of my top 10 lists, because this is a game that I only got at the most recent Gen Con. I'm not even sure if the review for it will be out before this top 10 list or not, because I just filmed the review for it, and that is Victory and Glory Napoleon. Now, this game is a lot of fun, and while this is a game about playing out the entirety of the Napoleonic Wars, the wars themselves are not actually played out in the area control mechanic. The area control mechanic in this is more like political control and influence over the different countries. And you need to have maximum influence in a country to be able to recruit mercenaries or allied troops from them. So it is important, and it also has a very similar mechanic to how Jericho works in regard to the influence gets you points at the end of the round. It's got 3 rounds, and some of the areas are worth very little points early on or no points, and then lots of points later, or vice versa. For instance, Egypt is worth more points in the beginning and then no points at the end, whereas both Britain and France are worth 0 points in the first 2 rounds and then 10 points in the last round. This is a really cool game. It's plays out the Napoleonic Wars in a very abstract manner. The actual playing of all actions are done by a hand management card mechanic, but then the control of the areas is done by your influence cubes and who has the most influence in every nation. And that is Victory and Glory Napoleon, a really, really big, epic-looking game that comes in at under 2 hours. There you have it. So, for my next entry on my list, my number 7, similar to Jericho, we've got another bizarre hybrid game, and that is Ethnos. Now, whereas Jericho was a mix of area control and trick-taking, Ethnos is this bizarre mix of area control and card set collecting. Now, the set collecting in this feels very much like the classic game of Rummy 500. If you played that when you were younger, you're trying to get certain sets of cards in your hands and then play them down face up on the table. But playing them down then also allows you to put tokens out on the board. And having the most tokens in control of an area of the board, again, is earning you points. This is a very, very interesting combination of those two mechanics. I really enjoy it. The set collecting, while the area control is necessary to get points, the set collecting actually seems to be the larger of the two mechanics in regard to this game. But it definitely is an area control game because you can't win without controlling the majority of any of the different areas on the board, because that is how you get your victory points. I really like this one. I think it holds up. There were some people complaining that they didn't think it looked very attractive. I think that's a little bit overly nitpicky. It's not the most attractive game in the world, but I don't think it's as ugly as people were making it out to be, and it's tons of fun, and that is Ethnos. Now, for my number 6, we've got a game that I've definitely talked about before, and that is 7 Ronin. Now, this is an asymmetrical game where you're playing out an obvious homage to the movie 7 Samurai. One player plays these 7 Ronin that are defending a village, while the other player plays a band of ninjas that are attacking them. I mean, if you changed what some of the Ronin actually looked like and you changed the ninjas into bandits, it would be 7 Samurai. So it's really not much of a stretch, but the game itself is awesome. And it's got a bit of a well, one, it's very asymmetrical. The ninjas and the Ronin play very differently, and then it's got this hidden action selection programming mechanic going on, where you each have a little screen and you have your own little copy of the board behind that screen, and you're placing your units on the board for where they go. Now, the area control comes in with the ninja player primarily, because the Ronin have special abilities they can activate for their Ronin if they have guessed correctly on whether their Ronin is going to be by themselves or opposed by some of the ninjas. Certain Ronin only have abilities that will activate when they're opposed, and certain only have abilities that will activate when they're not opposed. The ninja, on the other hand, have to try to figure out where the Ronin are going to go because they want to take control of some of those spots. The ninja get abilities depending on which area they control. And that's where the area control comes in. And there's lots of really cool abilities that the ninja player can get, from going to the top of a tower and shooting arrows out to neighboring spaces to attack some of the Ronin, to poisoning the well if they take control of the well, to even getting to recruit more ninja in one of the spaces. So this is a really cool game. I like it a lot. The area control is one of the main mechanics for one of the players for the ninjas, and that is 7 Ronin. Now, moving on to the top half here, my number 5 is the one that I thought might be a stretch. I was looking at it and I was like, is it area control? It feels sort of like area control, but I wasn't sure. And then I looked on Board Game Geek and it's classified as area control, and that is Quantum. So now with Quantum, your playing pieces, your ships, are a bunch of dice, and you're moving the dice around on the map to try to surround planets with the right combinations of numbers, the number that's listed on the planet. So if the planet, say, needs an 8, you might surround it with a 6 and a 2, or a 4 and 2 2s. And then you can put one of your cubes on the planet. And it's a race to be the first person to get rid of all your cubes. And as you're only allowed to drop 1 cube per planet, you're going to force your way through the galaxy and try to cut off your opponent and not let them get to your side of the galaxy while you're trying to get to their side of the galaxy to drop your cubes off as quick as possible. And it feels kind of like an abstract game with a bit of randomness, just a little bit of randomness added in, because you can re-roll the dice to try to get other numbers. But it can play up to 4 players, and it does it really well. And the game is absolutely excellent. There's a picture here of kind of what it looks like on the back. That is just one version of the board. There's lots of different ways to set up the board. That one's just a square, but there's ones where you have these branching arms of the galaxy that come out from the center. They can make all sorts of interesting choke points, so the ships will have to fight each other and get past each other. This is a really fun game. I thoroughly enjoy it, and that is Quantum. So, for my number 4 favorite area control game, I have one of these modern games that takes the mechanic and does it a little differently, and that is Fight for Olympus. Now, Fight for Olympus has this little thin board that you play out, and it's got 3 areas in it. And in those different areas, you're playing cards to your side of the board. And if your opponent has cards on their side of the board, they're going to fight each other and do damage to each other. However, if they're unopposed, instead you will take control of that area and get its ability. One of the area's abilities is to get points. One of the area's abilities is to get resources. And another one is to draw extra cards. This is a really cool game where you're playing out a fight between various Greco-Roman mythological characters, and you can have Heracles and I'm drawing a blank on Hector and Achilles and all the various other characters from the mythological stories out there fighting for you and taking control of the board. And it's a really, really fun game. It's very enjoyable, and it's strictly 2 players. But this is one of those games where it took me a while to realize that it's area control, because the way it does the area control is so different from the classic idea of area control. But yeah, it's area control, and it's really cool. And that is Fight for Olympus. Now, my next one is one that I have been singing the praises of for about a year now, and that is 1750 Britain versus France. This was a little independently released game that I thoroughly enjoy, where you're playing out the colonial wars between Britain and France. And now each of the board is made up of cards, and each of the areas of the board are sets of cards. I believe it starts at 3 cards in each area. You have North America, the Caribbean, India, and Africa, which are where the colonies are. Now, each colony has a different ability you can get if you're in control of that colony. Some of them have you roll a die for a chance for something. Some of them just give you bonuses to certain stats, maybe your ability in combat there, if you're using certain units. Like there's one that's better with using privateers. There's another one that improves the ability of a fortress if you build it there. And those abilities are tons of fun. This game would not be nearly as awesome as it is without those abilities. Plus, at the end of the game, the person with the control of the most colonies wins. So they are incredibly important for winning, as well as the extra abilities they give you for those areas. And that is 1750 Britain versus France. Fantastic game. Okay, now we're down to my number 2 here. So this is the 2 and the 1 was a tough one because I love both of these games very much, and they're both phenomenal. And number 2 is Blood Rage. Now, if you've never heard of Blood Rage, you might be new to the gaming hobby, because this is one that everyone has been who's played it has been raving about for the last few years since it came out. Blood Rage is an area control game where you are playing out the Viking Ragnarok. You take control of a Viking clan, and then also can recruit monsters to your side, and you fight it out on a slowly being destroyed world, but you actually want to have the majority in an area that's going to be destroyed, because dying during the Ragnarok means you'll definitely go to Valhalla. So sometimes you're fighting for your own guys to die, which is so weird, but it's great. And then there's also extra objectives about if a lot of your guys get killed, you can get extra points. There's some objectives about killing your opponent's guys, of course, because that makes sense. But sometimes you could have a hidden objective and your opponent kills a whole bunch of your guys. And you're like, oh, I just got that objective, thank you. And you get all the points. This is a great game. There's a lot of strategy that can be done with this. It's incredibly fun. It's incredibly interesting. And for something that feels like a really grand area control game, this is one that comes in fairly quickly, so it can hit the table more often than a lot of other games. Because generally it can come in under 2 hours, which is something that's really, really good about Blood Rage. Now, on the other side of area control games, the old school, grand, long area control games, which make you feel like you're playing out an incredibly epic story, we have my number 1. My number 1 favorite area control game of all time is a game that I've never had go less than 6 hours. And that is Twilight Imperium. Now, Twilight Imperium is a game that I have loved for years and years. This is the 4th edition I'm holding here, though I still have my copy of 3rd edition, and I will not sell it because of how many great memories I had with 3rd edition. Even though I do feel that 4th edition is better, though there are a couple things that's missing from 4th edition from 3rd, but that's a discussion for another time. Twilight Imperium is a game where you control an entire civilization as you spread out amongst the stars, colonizing planets. You expand, you exploit, you exterminate, and you, I forget what the other X is. Expand, exploit, exterminate, explore. Oh yeah, explore. Yes, of course, you explore new planets. So this, you have to control lots of planets to get lots of resources and sometimes discounts on certain technologies, and controlling the planets are also very integral towards working towards many of the goals, which will give you points, which will also help you win the game. Planets have 2 different resources on them. One of them is a physical resource, which helps you buy things, and the other is political, which helps you in voting for changes to the rules at certain points during the game. So controlling the planets is very important, and you fight wars over certain systems of planets as you are trying to take control of them. This is a game where you definitely have some war strategy. You also have politics. You also have economics. You also have like an arms race as you're fighting to have the most advanced technology. And it feels like an amazing, grand experience. This is a game that you have to set aside the whole day for, with you and a few friends, and you're going to play for 6+ hours, but it's worth it. It's absolutely amazing. I have done that many times, and I have never, ever had a bad time, and I actually do not mind losing this game, ever, because it is so much fun just to play it, just to build up my civilization. And that is my number 1 favorite area control game of all time, Twilight Imperium. So there you have it. Now, let me know in the comments down below, what are some of your favorite area control games? Maybe some that I missed. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see us here at the Board Game Captain do more top 10 lists like this one, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, Please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.